further ado, I'd like to introduce James Franco, Bruce Terry Chung, Pamela Rowanowski, and Shruti Ganguly. Hey guys, congratulations on the film. Thank you so much for joining us. First, James, how did you get introduced to C.K. Williams' work, and what drew you to making the films out of this poetry?
Well, I was at NYU for film, and with most of these people, and we were required to make a series of short films, and I found from my first film on that it was very. I got very inspired by by adapting poems into these short films. The size really worked, but more than that, working with a poem as a source broke up my preconceived ideas about how a film should be shaped, what should be the main focus of a film, and there are certain things that are so ingrained in film school teaching and students' ideas about how a film should be shaped, like a 3-act structure and a rising action, and the conflict should be established by this point and then resolved by this point, that I really loved, working on something that broke me out of that. And I found oh yeah, you realize a lot of that idea of what works is really based on, what has sold in the past, and the way that we have been showing movies for the last 100 years, mainly in theaters. But now, not only are the way that we show movies and shows and videos, changing so much, that I didn't need to, with these kinds of films, I didn't need to worry about the commercial side of things as much, that I wasn't doing these kinds of projects to make a ton of money. I was doing it really for the art. So I really liked the way that a poem as a source got me to think about tone in a new way, about imagery in a new way, and rhythm, and usually when a movie is an adaptation of something, usually it's working from a short story or a novel or a nonfiction article, and those are all things that usually are very strong on kind of narrative structure, maybe character. Poems, their strengths are rhythm, tone, the way that they're lineated, the way that they sound, the imagery evoked, and the poems that I chose were narrative poems. They did have stories in them. They did have characters in them. They weren't completely abstract, but what was primary was something other than narrative, and so once I graduated, I went back the next year to teach. And this was the first class that I taught. And I wanted the students to have that similar experience. I wanted to, bring them poems to work from so that we could, as a class, kind of break out of these preconceived ideas of structure. Not only that, I really liked using this book in particular for a whole class with 12 different directors, because it was a single book with many poems in it, but they all seemed to revolve around a central character, a central poet figure that seemed somewhat based on C.K. himself. And so that allowed me to give, each student could pick his or her own poem to work on and adapt, but they would also be thinking about how that individuated piece would work in connection with the rest, and how their piece would add to the whole and contribute to the whole. And in that way, it made the class both, it allowed for a lot of room for each student, each director to bring his or her own kind of creativity, own ideas to his or her own piece, but it also made it the whole class collaborative because they were thinking how their piece fit into the greater whole. So it kind of gave me everything that I wanted as a teacher.
And Bruce, you were the through line throughout the film's 12 different directors. I mean, it's an amazing feat. And working with different directors, but with James, maintaining the main character, what was the challenges in working with so many different directors, and what were the benefits of having the same lead actor in that situation?
I feel very lucky to be able to work with such amazing directors on The Color of Time, Pam, Shruti, Tina, Edna, Virginia. It was a very eye-opening experience for me, especially as a young cinematographer. Every day I learned so much from set. I would come back to I shared a hotel room with the other DP on the shoot, Pedro, and every night we'd come home from shooting and we talk about how much we learned and how much we were able to accomplish in such a short day. Like, James has this great energy where he always wants to shoot. He doesn't just want to shoot what's scripted. Whenever there's like a free moment, we'd go out into Detroit where we made the movie and like steal scenes, steal moments, steal improv with other actors, and just like make it as organic and as free as possible. And as a young filmmaker, that was very eye-opening because I didn't know you could make a movie that way. I didn't know you could just do it, and I think that's what I learned the most from this project was how we can just do it, especially with the tools that we have in our hands now, Yeah.
And speaking to the directors, Shruti, starting with you, I mean, what was the challenges in being part of one of a dozen different directors, and was that something that, what were you trying to bring to your version? Were you trying to make a through line, or were you just interested in telling your own story?
I think that everyone connected with a certain poem in a very specific way and adapted it with their unique take on it. And I think we were so communicative and collaborative in terms of overall structure and themes and ideas. And that's how we built a timeline, how we found that characters and themes were repeating, as James said, and we built an aesthetic language. So at the same time, while you were conscious of your own, you were so aware of the whole that you were a part of. And for this to work, you had to recognize that you were going to try and do something bigger. But at the same time, the beauty with this particular project was kind of diving in and being comfortable with not knowing how things will go and where this will go. And it's kind of amazing that what started out as like an idea some years ago is now on screen, and that's really exciting for us. So, I've learned a lot. This was the first film I produced, and so also producing it with 11 other very, talented, opinionated NYU Tisch grad students was really, was amazing. It was a challenge, but it has been such a journey, and we all collaborate and work together still and have a foundation for friendship and for work. Pam?
Well, the question is about how...
Just the difficulties in working with 11 other creative minds on a one through line, and the benefits of it.
I think that it was a really amazing lesson to learn starting out our careers. Collaboration is everything in this business, and so the challenge of working with 11 other directors is a thing, but we are all, great friends and really cared about each other and trusted each other, and had a lot of time to work on it. But I think the skills that we learned about being clear on what we were trying to do and letting go and, accepting happy surprises and obstacles and turning those risks into opportunities. That is a lesson that I think really changed my life and changed a lot of our lives, and, is an instrumental thing to learn. Like Bruce said, there are ways that you think you're going to make a film, and then this kind of opened our eyes to a whole different way. And I worked with Bruce and James on another movie, and I think that we, on this film, developed a lot of trust and freedom and ability to say, let's see what happens, let's find it in the moment, let's find it together. So collaboration is a critical skill to have.
That's excellent. And James, going to the amazing cast, I mean, it's incredible, the people that came out. Mila Kunis, who you've collaborated before in the past. Bruce Campbell makes an amazing little turn in there, and then Zach Braff. I mean, how did you go about the casting process for this, and how did you guys sort of work to, get these people interested and involved? Were they excited about the experience?
And Jessica Chastain and Henry Hopper is in it, and I'm in it. And yeah, this was my first class as a film teacher. And since this class, I've taught many more like it, and this was kind of the paradigm for everything I've done after. And so now I'm in the middle of my 5th year as a teacher, and I've found that it has to be the right kind of actor, and I have a pretty good sense of who to ask now. Like people, some actors just are too busy, or they just don't have any interest in working with people that have less experience than them. They're, I don't know what it is. They're afraid, or feel like they, give back in other ways and just don't have time to give back in this way, or whatever it might be. But there are some actors that are very generous and are excited to work with younger filmmakers. And Mila and Zach certainly, and Jessica were certainly of that ilk. And Zach, had been to film school, and so he knew exactly what these student directors were going through, and I think was really impressed by the ambition behind this project, and that it wasn't just a bunch of student filmmakers each kind of making their own thing, and we kind of put it together as a showcase. That actually we were trying to construct a feature film, and then he told me after he did it that he was so happy that he did it, that it took him back to that pure time when filmmaking was new, when he was doing it with wide eyes, really doing it for the love and for the art of it. And that's what a lot of these actors have told me, that it reminded them about, of why they got into acting or making films, and that there is, still purity in what we do, and not that, big commercial films can't be artistic, but there are certainly a lot of other commercial considerations and marketing considerations that come in, and that need to be navigated once you leave, the pure space of film school, and so they were all really happy to do it, and they had a, really great time on the movie.
Speaking of Mila Kunis and your collaborators, I think we have a clip that we can show now of you working with Mila. It's a great little moment, and I want to throw it to you, Bruce. When you're working as a cinematographer and you're working with your director to make an actor comfortable who's coming into some project that's sort of beyond their control, one part of a 12-piece sort of a collaboration, what do you do to make somebody comfortable in that situation? Is there some way to sort of open it up, the creative process, quickly? Is there like a quick shortcut to that?
Actually, for this clip here, Pedro shot that, and I directed that quick scene. And I think for me just as a person, I try to be very open and collaborative whenever possible. And we shot that scene kind of in the middle of the night. I think James and Mila worked overtime on Oz, and they came straight from Oz to our little set in the middle of Detroit. And it was like 2 in the morning, I think. And they had a 6 a.m. call time. I was like, oh my gosh, we got to shoot it quick and fast. So we just, I wanted to, forget the lines and just improv, because like James and Mila, they have great chemistry. They're like amazing actors, amazing at improv. And like, don't fight that. Just like give them the space to really discover magic. So, I just try to be invisible with the technical stuff like lights and cameras, be as invisible as possible, and just maybe give the actors like a starting point for a scene and an end point for a scene, and let them get there however it feels natural and best, But yeah.
And how about you, James? I mean, were you able to do prep work while you were working on, was there moments in Detroit where you were able to sort of rehearse that scene, or did you go in there, fresh and cold? Or?
No, I mean, we had done, as when you're teaching a film school, the professors or teachers don't usually go to the student sets. You do all the work in the classroom, you help the students through pre-production and all that. And so the fact that I was actually on this set was really because I was an actor. So I did a ton of prep with the directors in the first semester, where we developed the scripts. I have this thing that I do with all my classes, where once they have the second or third draft of a script, I have them go out and shoot the entire thing for, they should spend no money on it. They don't need their real actors. They don't use real locations, but they go and approximate all their shots, and they say all the lines and cut it together, and to really see it up on the screen, so that we don't have to argue back and forth in the script stage. We're making movies, so we should be dealing with moving images, not words on a page. And so I have all of them do that. So they all did that for this, and you develop the script more after that. You see the test, and that was working, or what did you find in your test? And and it's like those tests are great because they're low pressure situations where directors who haven't been on 10 movie sets get to be on a set and just try things without real money being spent, without professional actors looking to them to say, what do I do now? Like, they get to just kind of figure it out in their own time and just try things. And it's a great kind of rehearsal and for directors, but you also get to see how your ideas are playing, on camera. And so we did all of that. And then once I see that and I watch those tests with the directors, then I can say, this is what I think. I think this is working. What are you going for there? Oh, you were going for that. It's not quite reading. Did you think about this? And once we go through all that, I can kind of sign off and say, all right, go for it. I think you're in the right direction. So they did all the prep work in Detroit, and they found all the locations, and and Bruce and Pedro, the DPs, kind of worked out the way that they were going to light it and shoot it, and all of that. But as far as the actors coming in and working with different directors, it sounds kind of crazy or like a little schizophrenic or something, but it's actually not that different than working on a television show where you'll have multiple writers, you'll have multiple directors, but at the center, there'll be a concept, there'll be the characters that kind of continue, there'll be, storylines that continue. And so once, as a performer, I think once you have that down and everybody involved also understands that these are all connected and building off each other so that one section won't verge, completely away from the others, because then, who knows, maybe that section won't make it into the final one because it's like, well, how does this fit? You were going, all the way over there. We were all over here. So everybody knows to kind of stick to the spine of the thing. So I think it's once that's in place, that spine, that through line, stylistically and thematically and narratively, the actors can kind of go from piece to piece and feel like they're still making the same thing.
Nice. And this question's for Shruti and Pamela. I mean, this is a student project, but you're also directing, a very high profile actor that happens to be your teacher. And what is were there a lot of nerves involved with that? What are the stresses of that? And I know you've both sort of gone on to work on really impressive projects right now. So if you could tell us a little bit about what you're working on now.
Pam, why don't you go first?
No, I don't think there were a lot of nerves. James is a really inspiring and great leader and set the tone for this, like I said, a lot of freedom and ability to experiment. As far as what we're working on next, I made a movie called The Adderall Diaries with James and with Bruce that we're finishing post on now. And that was a collaboration very much born of this one and of knowing each other in film school. I think there's real magic that comes from having this kind of partnership. I feel insanely lucky. Not everyone gets to have that. Most people don't get to have that. And we all share kind of a passion and, pool of interests and themes. And I trust them both so much. It was, it is without a doubt the best thing I've gotten to do. It was a blast.
So I went to NYU for my MFA at Tisch, and I also got my MBA at Stern. So I did 2 masters. And so what I love about this project, I was a producer on it, but I also got to direct. But since I've ended up producing a lot more, and my 4th feature is going to Sundance, so pretty excited about that. But what I love about this, it reminds me of how I need to be focusing on my writing and my directing more, and this has been a real reminder, especially with the film coming about. While I love producing, I also love directing equally, and it's been like going back and like having memories of set and working with James and working with my classmates, my Tisch friends. Can we all just give like our other directors who are here? Can you stand up,
absolutely,
please?
Absolutely.
Because we made this together. Virginia,
there we go.
Shripriya, Edna, Tina. And I feel like there's also, while in this group of 12, there are about 9 countries, I think, represented. And it was amazing because we also were very international and have very different perspectives. But this was really the foundation for so many things. And I'm super grateful for that.
That's great. I think we have another clip to show featuring Zach Braff, who you were talking about earlier. Okay, so now we have some time to throw it to you guys for some questions.
I'm studying film studies back in the UK, and I act as well a lot. And I was just wondering, is there any advice, actually to all of you really, what advice would you give to someone who's pretty much on the cusp of going out into that industry, or any kind of like theatre, theatre, film? What advice could you give?
Bruce?
I think don't be afraid of mistakes and just do it. The more you do it, the better we all get. And nothing's stopping you right now from doing any project that you want to do. If you want to act, you want to write, you want to direct. It's do everything. It's awesome.
I would say do everything, but also do it with your friends or people you really care about who will also grow with you, because it's really hard to do it by yourself.
What I try to impress on a lot of my students now is, the technology is so available nowadays, and you can make a movie on your phone. And there are so many more, channels and platforms for distribution nowadays that there really is no excuse not to go out and try things. And what I found in my own creative life, one of the most important ingredients is audience reaction. Before, I went to writing school or film school, I was writing all the time. I was an actor, but I was writing all the time and wanting to direct my own movies, but I wouldn't show anybody my work. And then one of the most important aspects of the MFA writing program was that I had to show my work to the other students. And it didn't, at that point, sometimes you get good feedback, sometimes the feedback was just lame, like, you don't even like the kind of stuff I'm doing, I don't even want to listen to you. But the fact that other people were going to read it made my relationship with my work so much different. I was so much more responsible about what I was doing, and I was no longer living in my own private kind of dream world about how good my stuff was or how other people were reading it. I was actually getting their reactions, and you also learn, when you put your stuff out there, you learn who to listen to. You find, your critics, your mentors, the people who will give you the advice that helps you. And you'll also find that there are a lot of people out there that if they see your stuff, they're not your audience, and you don't need to listen to them. And you need, if you want to create work that will go beyond your own private sphere, you need to understand how your work is being read by other people. And now today more than ever, you can put it out there. You can get reactions. So there's really no excuse not to just go and do it. Yes, you can go through the conventional routes and try and please the gatekeepers that are at the top of the industry. But while you're doing that, there's no excuse to not go out and be making stuff and doing stuff while you're, pounding on those doors. And a lot of the times, you'll see if there is talent, if you do kind of figure out your voice, that those small projects are what get you there. I was just on SNL, and some of my old friends from SNL, Andy Samberg and the Lonely Island guys, I think they all started just making their own little silly videos, and then boom, they were on SNL. And so go and do that, empower yourself and go and make your own things. And if the first thing you make isn't great, if you really want to do it, then you'll learn from that first one, and you'll hopefully get better.
Hi, thank you so much for coming to talk to us. Your ideas are really inspiring. I'm a budding actor as well, and I'm curious, this question's for James. When you're approached with new work, what aspects of the project are the most important to you? And also, are there any directors who you would work with regardless of the character you were offered?
Yeah, as an actor, I think, when I was a younger actor, I realized that I was really focused on myself more than the project. And I would, do a ton of work for the character, but it was really to kind of make myself look good rather than try and help the project be the best that it could be. And now that I am a director and I understand, what a director really needs, when I'm hired as an actor, I see my job as, helping the director achieve his or her vision and really trying to make the whole project, as good as possible. Because, as an actor in film and television, you're just one piece of the puzzle, and you're only as good as the people you're working with and the context you're in. This is why you can see great actors be great in one movie, and then you're like, wow, what happened in that movie? They're okay, but they just weren't as good. And it's not that they were suddenly bad actors. It's like, no, it's the context. It's the material they're working with. So I try to just, find good material, find people I trust, people I like working with, and then serve the project. And I guess as an actor, I just trying to figure out the character, basically, just in broad strokes, there's the inner side of the character and the outer side of the character. And the inner side, you just try and find out, who is this person? What is his or her worldview? And I try to just find one essential desire, one essential need for that character. What is this, just within the confines of that story, what does that character want? In Pineapple Express, that character wants a friend. He really wants a friend. If I didn't emphasize that, it would have just been a stoner comedy. But I think that movie is more than a stoner comedy. It resonates deeper than just that. So, and I truly believe a lot of that comes from the character being grounded in this basic need. And so Spring Breakers, there's a crazy character who, if I did it poorly, he would just be all surface. He would just be a clown. But actually, underneath, he finds his soulmates. And again, he just wants to connect. He just wants some friends, and that grounds that character and keeps him from being completely ridiculous. And actually, I think makes the movie watchable, because you're now watching human connection, human emotion underneath all of that surface flash and silliness. And so as an actor, I always try and find that. No matter what I'm in, I try to find that. Something as, something like a Jason Statham action movie, where I'm the villain. Even then, there's a character who just wants kind of the life that we all have. He just wants the good life, and he's been kept down so long. He sees his ticket. Unfortunately, his ticket to that good life involves taking out another human, so that makes him a villain. But deep down, he wants what we all want. He wants a good life. He wants, he wants out of his bad situation. And it's just that his actions make him a villain, but his desires don't. And that grounds him again and makes him watchable, makes him more than just a cardboard villain. And to your second question, I've learned to be very director-driven, to go along with that idea that you're only as good as the people you work with. And I believe that films work best when they're, a director's medium. And not to say that I don't like collaborative directors, but in the end, I think when it's one person's kind of vision and not catering to a bunch of visions, it just kind of works the best. And so, or if there are multiple, directors, that they're all aiming for, a unified concept or a unified idea. And so that's the kind of director of the thing. And so there are a lot of directors who, regardless of the role, I would just, work with. I've worked with a lot of them, so.
This question's for James. My name is Evan, a big Spider-Man fan, big Odds Great and Powerful fan. And if you want to answer this question, Bruce, you can as well. For the Spider-Man movies and the Odds Great and Powerful, what was Tobey Maguire and Kirsten Dunst like from your point of view? What was it like working with Michelle Williams and Odds Great and Powerful and Joey King as well? And the other question is, what was it like working with Marvel and Disney and being in the studio to get both studios?
I'm glad you asked that. I think everybody was gonna ask that, and you did. So, Toby and Kirsten were great. though, the Spider-Man movies were, I really believe that first Spider-Man trilogy and the early X-Men movies really set the template for, this new round of superhero movies. And you can see that they both, have origin stories built into the narratives that, you can find in a lot of these movies now. And the idea that you can use, that you can use good actors for these movies, and also that you can give these superhero stories real scenes and real drama. That was, I think, in some ways, kind of a fairly new idea that that the character arcs and the drama that they were going through was just as important as the action scenes. And I think that it forced people to kind of take the superhero movies a little more seriously. And on top of that, the effects nowadays have developed to the point where they really could capture the more fantastic powers of the Marvel characters, where before the effects weren't quite up to the needs of capturing those powers on screen. But Toby and Kirsten, they're still very good friends, and we kind of grew up together in the business, and I'm still pretty close with both of them. Oz Great and Powerful was a great experience for me because I got to work with Sam Raimi again, but now as the lead character, and he's just such a great collaborator, and he works on these huge movies, but he really makes it a point to have everybody contribute ideas, from the actors to the designers to the effects people. I mean, everybody is in the conversations about how it's made, and because of that, he's a real pleasure to work with. And he also, people ask me like what I've learned from the different directors and what I take onto my sets when I direct, and it sounds like a small thing, but it's actually not. Sam Raimi is so fun to be around. If you go to his sets, he's telling jokes, and even though each day on that movie costs probably more than $1 million, he's still having fun, and that makes everybody happy to be on set. And that's what you want. You want a happy set. At least I do. I spent too many years as a young actor torturing myself for nothing, because my performances weren't any better when I tortured myself than they are when I enjoy myself and work with people that I like. So, and so I really take that lesson and try to make my sets fun places to be, because then people want to contribute. And movie sets are hard. You're always, especially on the artistic movies like this, you're always racing the sun, you're always chasing racing the clock. And if you have a group of people that want to be there, and you don't, you miss a shot, or you need one more shot, or you need to go overtime, they're much more apt to say, all right, we'll do it, than if you're a jerk, they're going to be like, yeah, sorry, union rules, we got to go. So I learned that from Sam Raimi, and Michelle Williams. She's a great actress. She's a perfectionist. She works really, really, really hard at everything she does, and I think Oz was a really great movie for her because she has a daughter, and it was like one of her only movies that she could bring her daughter to, and I think that was really a special experience for her.
I think that note about Sam Raimi is really a great note on to end on for this project about directors. I'd like to thank Pamela, Bruce, Shruti, and James for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
Make sure you
Thank
check
you.
out
Thank
The
you.
Color of Time on VOD and iTunes right now, and in theaters on Friday. And follow at
It's Color of Time Film on Twitter.
on Twitter. Exactly. Thank you so much, guys. Support
you.
these
Thank
directors.
you.